Good morning, guys. Welcome to AMX86. You gotta have faith. And I apologize if you were watching a second ago. My connection just shut out, so I had to restart here. But it is Sunday morning. I'm here a little bit earlier than I would prefer to be because, especially after watching last night's insane UFC, and I don't know if you can see the steam coming from my mouth, but it's pretty cold. Especially after watching the UFC fight last night, I would love to be sleeping in, but my son is getting baptized, so I had to get the reading in, and get the video posted, and then start getting ready for the baptism. So the book we're reading is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. It's one of the best success/personal development/business books that's ever been written. One of the most powerful books that I've read, and it's actually the second time I'm reading, and it's the first time I've ever read a book for the second time. And that was inspired to me by Rob Dyrdek. Rob Dyrdek is the guy in Ridiculousness or Fantasy Factory. He's just such an inspirational entrepreneurial athlete turned business mogul. So I heard him talk about reading it a second time. I thought, you know what, maybe I'll read it a second time. But today's chapter is called "You Gotta Have Faith." And if you find yourself singing that song by George Michael or Limp Bizkit, which I will not sing, I almost broke into it, then, that's the gist of it. You got to have faith. And we're talking about the idea of the power of thought, and the power of thought transmuting. Napoleon Hill uses this word transmuting, meaning basically taking from your mind and putting in the palm of your hand. And he's talking about actual money. He's talking about dollar bills. But the principles that we're talking about apply across the board. Dollar bills, promotions, self-confidence, a happy family, you name it. And it's attainable by following the principles outlined in this book. And he opens this chapter, because it's titled "You Gotta Have Faith," he opens this chapter by saying, faith, hi Gracie June, faith is the head chemist of the mind. Faith is the head chemist of the mind, meaning faith is in control. Faith has power. And another term that he uses interchangeably here is belief. Belief and faith are the same thing. And I'll get in sorry about that. Can you please ask Uncle Ben to close it, honey? Daddy's doing a video. Uncle Ben. Faith is the head chemist in the mind. Belief is the driver of everything you do. He goes on to say, all thoughts which have been emotionalized or given feeling and mixed with faith begin immediately to translate themselves into their physical equivalent or counterpart. All thoughts.
Look at me. See me?
Sorry. All thoughts which have been emotionalized, given feeling, and mixed with faith begin immediately to translate themselves into their physical equivalent or counterpart. So we're talking about thoughts being backed by faith, or thoughts being backed by belief. Now, I'll probably get into the written excerpts here in a little bit, but this idea of thoughts being backed by belief, thoughts are thoughts. Thoughts are a wonderful thing in your head. You think whatever, you think a thought. Those thoughts don't transmute, don't develop into anything until they're believed, until you have faith in that. So you might be saying, all right, I have thoughts, I want to have faith, but how do I do it? I don't understand how to do it. You don't just have faith. My answer to that, as I always say over and over again, is how you structure your life. What are you doing on a daily basis? What are you reading on a daily basis? What are you consuming into your brain? What's basically giving you the power to transmute those thoughts into the actual physical equivalent? It's the way you live your life. How you fight your fight is how you live your life. Do one thing is how you do everything. That mentality leads to the transmutation of those thoughts becoming reality. Such as when I thought, hey, I want to become a UFC fighter. Well, I had to believe it. How in the heck do you believe it? Well, you live your life in a way. You construct everything you do, think, read, say, be around, etc. to support that thought. And that is how you transmute it into its physical being. And then he goes on to say, this is a slippery slope. He goes on to say, not only thought impulses which have been mixed with faith, but those which have been mixed with any of the positive emotions or any of the negative emotions may reach and influence the subconscious mind. Now that's getting a little technical there, but basically what it's saying is that faith, that belief, whether it's good or whether it's bad, is going to come true. Think about that in your life. When have you thought your way into a good outcome versus thought your way into a bad outcome. And again, it's not just sitting here at my parents' house on their porch thinking, I want to inspire millions of people. And then I'm just sitting here. No. That thought, yeah, I want to inspire millions of people, but how are you going to do it? What is your strategic plan? Yesterday we talked about this idea of practical dreamers. I am a practical dreamer. I encourage you, be a dreamer, but be a practical dreamer. Make a plan. Put yourself around the right people. Bring the right influences into your life on a daily basis. He goes on to say, your belief or faith, and this is more the same, is the element which determines the action of your subconscious mind. And how many of us have heard in the past, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. Whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. And I think this is a good time, this being a former professional fighter in the UFC, I think it's a good time to bring up Conor McGregor. Now, if you're knowledgeable of Conor McGregor, you know who he is, then you know exactly what I'm going to say. If you have no idea who this person is, Google Conor McGregor, UFC. Last night, he won, for the first time in the history of the UFC, he won 2 belts at the same time. So he was a champion, bumped up a weight class, won the belt in another weight class. That is all backed by a thought that turned into a belief that then transmuted into its physical being. I read his post-fight interview, and he said, it feels so natural, I've been here before, saying that he's imagined it. He's believed it for so long that it felt so natural and comfortable sitting on the stage with 2 belts because it's the only thing he's ever believed in. And you have a choice. You can make that belief. You cannot make that belief. But the secret to it is, if there's any chance of it coming to fruition, you've got to believe. Or as the title says, you've got to have faith. He then goes on to talk about this thing called autosuggestion. And he says, faith is a state of mind which may be induced by autosuggestion. Autosuggestion is telling yourself. It's brainwashing yourself. It's tricking yourself into believing. And the way you trick yourself into believing is by telling yourself, yeah, this is going to happen. It's funny. And this is an interesting thing that just happened. So many years ago, I remember, I passed up a contract to fight for Bellator. So Bellator offered me a contract into one of their tournaments. And Bellator is probably the next professional fighting league below the UFC. Professional fighting, the next one. But I wanted to be in the UFC. So I had this contract literally in my hands, and I decided, I'm going to forego this contract because I want to be in the UFC. And there was no guarantee at all. There was there was nothing. But I had that belief that's, I want to be there. That's going to happen. I'm going to live my life to make that happen. So I passed it up. I consulted with a friend of mine who was also a fighter and was a kind of an advisor to me at the time. And he was kind of calming me down. He said, look, dude, relax. It's only a matter of time before you're going to be in the UFC and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, wow. It's like a foregone conclusion to this guy that I'm going to be in the UFC. It was cut and dry. He believed it. And then that made me think, holy cow, the belief in that thought is even more powerful. Yesterday, I was just recorded a podcast with my co-host Dredd, A Fighter's Mindset, the Spaniard podcast. You can listen to it by clicking on podcast or searching us out on my website or searching us out on iTunes. And I was talking to my co-host, and he said so plainly, he said, this is going to be really awesome because when you get to a point where Tony Robbins is at, people are going to be able to look back at your podcast and listen to the origins, listen to the beginnings. I thought, what? Holy cow, this guy has so much faith in me. And it's nice it's like a kick in the butt that, whoa, holy cow, this faith really will dictate. So don't sit there and say, it's easy for me, Spaniard, to have faith, or it's easy for the other guy to have faith. Start living your life in a way that you can put that faith into its physical transmutation. Doubt's going to happen. Naysayers are going to happen, but you've got to have faith. So I hope you understood that those 2 stories and how they kind of got back to the root of you've got to have faith. Everyone else around me, everyone else around you can have faith. You don't have it, you ain't going anywhere. So carpe diem, fight well. I appreciate you tuning in. It is Sunday morning, so I'm assuming the viewership will be a little bit lower. We're going to go straight to, here's the basic plan. Here's the pre-plan. We're going to go straight through every day to 100. And then when we get to 100, I think I'm going to go Monday to Friday every morning at 6:30. That's the basic plan. Sundays are kind of my day off. Saturday can be your day off. But until then, we're going every day until we get to AMX 100. So thank you for tuning in today early on this Sunday morning. Make a decision to help spread excellence with a tag or a share of someone who could appreciate this message. And remember, you got to have faith. Carpe diem, fight well.